You are not weak, you are transitioning. There is a quiet exhaustion that does not come from work alone. It comes from carrying a life that no longer fits the person you are becoming. You wake up, and the world is still moving, the calendar is still asking, the people still expect, the routines still demand their shape from you. On the outside, everything looks stable. On the inside, something essential has begun to loosen. You feel it when the music no longer reaches you the same way. You feel it when conversations feel thinner, when even the things that once comforted you seem to fall short of their old weight. This is not failure. This is the moment when your inner structure begins to shift. Most people misread this stage. They assume something is wrong with them. They think they are losing strength, losing faith, losing themselves. So they push harder. They demand motivation from a system that is already overloaded. They chase intensity, distraction, noise, anything that promises to restore the old feeling. But this stage does not respond to force. It is not a problem of effort. It is a problem of transition. There are seasons of the soul when growth does not feel like rising. It feels like shedding. It feels like heaviness before the release. It feels like standing between two inner worlds, no longer belonging to the old one, not yet fluent in the new. This in-between space is deeply uncomfortable. It carries uncertainty, fatigue, and a strange loneliness, even when you are not alone. You begin to question your own capacity. You wonder whether you are becoming weaker, whether something inside you is breaking. But what is actually happening is far more precise. The structure that once held you is no longer large enough for the life forming within you. And this is the moment most people panic. They think they are losing themselves. They think something is going wrong. They do not realize that this exact discomfort is the evidence that something is finally going right. A child who is growing experiences pain not because the body is failing, but because it is expanding. The bones stretch, the muscles adapt, the entire system reorganizes to hold something new. No one calls that weakness. No one calls that collapse. Yet when the soul enters its own growth, we judge the same sensations as failure. We forget that the inner life obeys the same laws as the physical one. Expansion always carries pressure. Transformation always carries weight before it carries freedom. When you feel tired in this season, it is not because you are incapable. It is because you are carrying the work of becoming. When you feel uncertain, it is not because you are lost. It is because the old maps no longer describe your territory. When you feel the strange, quiet pull away from what once defined you, it is not detachment from life. It is the preparation for a deeper belonging. There is also something else happening beneath the surface. The nervous system, the memory, the emotional body are all renegotiating their agreements with the world. What once triggered you may no longer hold the same power. What once gave you comfort may now feel insufficient. What once frightened you may begin to feel strangely distant. This is not emotional instability, it is recalibration. Your inner instruments are being tuned for a different frequency of living. During this stage, many people attempt to rescue their old identity. They return to familiar roles, old habits, past versions of themselves, trying to re-establish stability. They tell themselves that if they could just feel the way they used to feel, everything would be fine. But the truth is, the former version of you did not have the capacity to hold the life that is quietly forming now. That self was sufficient for a previous chapter. It is not designed for this one. This is where quiet courage is required. Not the loud courage of performance and victory, but the steady courage of allowing change without knowing its full shape. The courage to remain present when clarity has not yet arrived. The courage to trust that the discomfort of this moment is not evidence of decline, but the signature of growth. You may notice that your prayers are changing, not in words, but in tone. They become less about fixing and more about holding, less about outcomes and more about endurance. You ask less for answers and more for strength to remain open. This too is part of the transition. When the soul matures, it begins to value presence over solutions, faithfulness over control. Do not mistake this for resignation. It is the opposite. It is alignment with a deeper current of life that does not rush, does not force, does not perform. It shapes quietly, steadily from within. There are days in this season when you will feel almost normal and then suddenly heavy again. This is not regression. It is the natural rhythm of transformation. The system tests its new shape, then rests, then tests again. The process cannot be rushed without breaking something delicate and important inside you. If you listen carefully, you will notice that beneath the fatigue, beneath the uncertainty, there is a strange new steadiness beginning to form. It is not excitement, it is not euphoria. It is something quieter and more durable. A sense that even though you do not yet see the road clearly, you are no longer willing to live in ways that diminish your soul. That refusal is not weakness. It is the beginning of strength. The world often celebrates visible strength, productivity, certainty, confidence, motion. But the soul recognizes a different kind of strength. The strength to remain in the passage when the old life has already fallen away and the new one has not yet fully appeared. That strength does not announce itself. It is built in silence, in ordinary days, in the private decision to keep going with honesty. You are not weak because you feel tired of carrying what no longer fits. You are not weak because your old motivations no longer drive you. You are not weak because the future feels undefined. These are not signs of collapse. They are the signals of transition. And transition, though uncomfortable, is one of the most sacred movements of the human spirit. There is a particular temptation during transition to measure yourself by the standards of the season you are leaving. This is where much of the unnecessary suffering comes from. You compare your current energy to the energy you had before. You compare your clarity now to the clarity you once relied on. You compare your productivity, your certainty, your emotional availability to a version of yourself that no longer exists. That comparison is not fair, and it is not accurate. You are not the same person. You are not meant to function the same way. You are in the middle of a reorganization that requires a different rhythm, a different pace, a different kind of attention. In this stage, the old tools no longer work as reliably. What once motivated you feels thin. What once structured your days feels rigid. Even your sense of purpose may feel muted, as if it is hiding just beyond reach. This is the mind's attempt to navigate a territory that does not yet have language. The soul is moving ahead of the intellect, and whenever that happens, confusion appears before clarity. You may find yourself withdrawing from noise. Crowds exhaust you more than they used to. Small talk feels hollow. Even some relationships feel strangely misaligned, not because they are wrong, but because the inner space you now inhabit is no longer matched by the same external patterns. This can be deeply unsettling. It can feel like you are losing connection, losing belonging, losing your place in the world. In truth, you are making room for a more honest form of connection, one that is not based on habit or role, but on resonance. During transition, the ego tries to restore equilibrium by tightening control. It wants answers, timelines, decisions, labels. It demands that you define yourself quickly so it can relax. But the soul does not move on deadlines. It grows in seasons. And the work of this season is not definition, it is stabilization. You are learning how to stand in the unknown without collapsing into fear or rushing into premature conclusions. This is why many people feel anxious during this phase. Anxiety is often the nervous system's response to uncharted territory. The old reference points are gone. The new ones are not yet solid. The system does not like this. It wants predictability. But growth requires temporary instability. Every meaningful transformation passes through a zone of uncertainty. There is no exception. If you are experiencing waves of doubt, sudden sadness, unexpected tears, or a sense of inner quiet that feels both peaceful and unsettling, these are not symptoms of emotional breakdown. They are signals of reconfiguration. The inner architecture is being rebuilt. Old emotional circuits are being released. New ones are forming, but they are not yet fully wired. This is why you may feel both fragile and strangely grounded at the same time. You may also notice that you are less tolerant of what once felt acceptable. Certain environments drain you more quickly. Certain conversations feel heavier. Certain compromises feel almost physically uncomfortable. This is not because you have become rigid. It is because your internal alignment is sharpening. You are no longer able to live in contradiction without feeling the cost. There is grief in this stage. Grief for the person you used to be. Grief for the simplicity of earlier seasons. Grief for the comfort of old identities, even if they were limiting. This grief is not something to fix. It is something to honor. If this season feels heavier than anything you have known, it is because it is carrying the birth of a larger self. Nothing light is being formed here. You are saying goodbye to a version of yourself that carried you as far as it could. That deserves respect, not rejection. Many people fear this grief because they think it means something has gone wrong. But grief is not only about loss. It is also about passage. It is the emotional bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. Without it, the transition remains incomplete. There will be moments in this season when you want to retreat, to go back, to simplify your life by shrinking it. You will remember how things used to feel and wonder why you cannot just return there. But the soul does not move backward. Once it has seen a larger horizon, it cannot unsee it. You may revisit old places, but you cannot truly live there again. What is required of you now is not dramatic action. It is not radical reinvention. It is faithful presence. You are being asked to stay with the process, to respect its timing, to listen to the subtle instructions unfolding within you. These instructions are not loud. They do not arrive as commands. They come as quiet adjustments. Less of this, more of that, slower here, firmer there. You are learning a new way of inhabiting your life, and that takes patience. There is something deeply important about this stage that is rarely spoken of. This is the stage where self-trust is rebuilt at a deeper level. Not the self-trust of confidence and control, but the self-trust of endurance. The trust that you can remain steady even when you do not yet understand the full meaning of what you are living. Each time you choose to stay present instead of escaping, each time you allow the discomfort without numbing it, each time you honor your limits without shaming yourself, you are laying the foundation of a stronger, quieter self. A self that does not depend on constant certainty to remain stable. This is how inner authority is born. Not from success, not from validation, but from surviving your own becoming. You are not falling apart. You are not failing. You are not losing your way. You are learning how to carry a larger life. There will come a point in this transition when you realize something subtle but decisive has changed. You no longer ask yourself, "How do I go back?" You begin to ask, "How do I live from here?" This shift is quiet. No one around you may notice it, but inside, it marks the true turning of the road. By this stage, you are no longer fighting the process as fiercely. The resistance softens, the panic loosens its grip. You may still feel tired. You may still feel uncertain. But beneath it, a new steadiness has taken root. You are no longer at war with the change. You are learning to walk with it. This is where a different kind of strength emerges. It is not the strength of ambition. It is not the strength of confidence or momentum. It is the strength of interior stability, the ability to hold yourself when the world does not yet reflect who you are becoming. The ability to remain faithful to your inner truth, even when no external structure has formed around it. You begin to notice that your reactions are changing. Situations that once pulled you into emotional storms now pass through you with less turbulence. You still feel them, but they no longer control you. You pause more often before responding. You choose silence where you once chose explanation. You step back from conflict without needing to win. This is not withdrawal. This is maturity. Your values start to reorganize themselves. What once seemed urgent now feels less important. What once felt trivial now carries deeper meaning. You begin to prefer depth over speed, substance over noise, truth over approval. These are not philosophical decisions. They are instinctive movements of the soul as it stabilizes into its new form. This is also the stage where many people become more compassionate, not only toward others, but toward themselves. You start to see how hard you were on yourself before, how often you demanded answers from a heart that was simply trying to survive and grow. You begin to offer yourself the same patience you once reserved for others. This is not self-indulgence, it is wisdom. As the transition settles, a new relationship with time emerges. You are less frantic about the future. You stop chasing closure. You no longer need every question resolved immediately. You trust that clarity will arrive in its own season, and you are willing to walk without it for now. This quiet trust is one of the most profound fruits of transformation. There is also a new honesty in how you see your life. You no longer cling to illusions. You recognize what is nourishing and what is draining. You acknowledge what must change and what must be protected. You do not dramatize these realizations. You simply adjust, slowly, firmly, with respect for your own limits. You may notice that the loneliness of the earlier phase has shifted. It is no longer the painful isolation of not belonging anywhere. It becomes the spacious solitude of knowing yourself more clearly. You are alone at times, but you are not empty. You carry your own presence with greater fullness. This is one of the great hidden gifts of transition, the discovery that your own company is enough. At this point, the new life is not yet fully visible, but it is no longer fragile. It has roots, it can hold weight. You feel it when you make decisions with more integrity. You feel it when you decline what does not align without guilt. You feel it when you move toward what is true, even if it is inconvenient. This is how the transition completes itself, not with fireworks, not with dramatic breakthroughs, but with a series of small, faithful choices that slowly build a life of inner coherence. You become less concerned with appearing strong and more committed to being whole. You begin to understand that the season you feared was your undoing was actually your formation. And when you look back, you will see that what felt like weakness was simply the shedding of what could no longer carry your soul. You were not collapsing, you were becoming. Walk in the light, even on the days it feels distant.